of people have been showing off their Nemesis Phase 2.
I know. It's been pissing me off.
Yeah. And all the Europeans, because they all ship from Europe, so you get there first. I haven't even got a freaking shipping notice yet. But of course, that doesn't mean anything. I got a shipping notice from Pandora an hour after it showed up.
Yeah.
Hey guys, this is Chris from Deus Ex Machina, and I am with
Dave from Rampant Wolf Games.
Hey, we are talking about spooky. It is October for us recording this, so it seems appropriate. If it wasn't for the fact of the camera, we could dim the lights, or maybe I'll throw in a. I'll throw in a creepy Halloween visual effect because I just have the new expansion from Power Director, right?
A little cat on a broom goes by.
Well, that wasn't exactly that scary. Let's try that again. Nope, not scary enough. Something scary. Ooh! All right.
All right.
So, we were talking about horror games. Mm-hmm. Not horror games. Horror games!
Yes. We're just gonna
Top 5 horror games.
All right.
Top games that are... It should be noted that there's no game, period, that is actually scary. There are games that can be creepy. There are games that can have suspense. There are games that, if they were a movie, would be a horror, which is basically my thing. But there's there's nothing like that. I've never played a game where I was actually scared. Not like playing a video game. There are plenty of video games where I was absolutely petrified.
Almost wet me cacks. Yeah, on some of them.
Yeah, exactly. But these are games that would be, I think, a relatively good idea if you were doing a Halloween-themed board game night.
Yeah, and actually the one that I do have at number 5, I did find almost borderline creep. Like, it made my skin crawl with some of the descriptions. But it wasn't. But it was enough to set you kind of on edge where if you, like, turn down the lights.
I also made a point that I only put one Cthulhu game on this list.
Yeah,
because you could put a lot.
You could. Well, that's the thing. That is the ultimate horror, right? H.P. Lovecraft. But anyways, all right, let's rock and roll. 1, 2,
ha! Gotcha.
Anyways,
my number 5 is a game called Faceless.
Yes.
Tom was talking about this recently, and I absolutely adore this game's mechanics. It got some controversy because of its production design. Mm-hmm. I haven't seen that, so anyone complaining about the production design, I have not encountered the production misgivings. Yes, the compass is not the greatest compass in the world, but it does its job. I love the fact that you basically are in this nightmare realm. You're trying to rescue this boy from this nightmare realm, and you're moving your party, and it's represented by this compass around this gloomy nightmare landscape, and you're moving these 3 other characters, and they're very creepy looking because they have like 2 sides. One's creepy looking, the other one's normal looking, and they're around, and then the boogeyman kind of character moves in the map itself, and if you touch him, if you go onto his space or he goes onto your space, you lose the game. It's definitely looks gloomy. There's a lot of very creepy imagery. The box we have is completely black, but it glows in the dark.
Nice.
There's a whole bunch of elements in the game that are glow in the dark. We don't use them because at that point the game has to be played in the dark because it doesn't add any detail. So we don't use those elements, but yeah, you could literally affix stickers to all the gameplay elements and make it glow in the dark, but then when you're not playing in the dark, it just becomes green. Everything becomes green.
Yeah.
So we decided not to do that, but the box is glow in the dark, which is absolutely creepy. It's got some neat mechanics, but it's definitely a dark theme game.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a period piece. The miniatures are fantastic. It always made my miniature list, and that is number 5, Faceless.
I'm gonna start with an honorable mention just because I just thought about it, and honestly, yeah, I know, breaking the mold. This one actually does feel a little bit, and actually I'm surprised you didn't say that this one does cause issues, or does cause a little bit of psychological trauma. Nyctophobia.
Oh, because you actually do it in the dark, yeah.
And also you can't see.
I'm surprised that's not on your list, period, then.
Yeah, it's not on my list. But coming in at number 5 is Coma Ward. I know you have issues with that one, but... For me,
I mean, it's a horror game.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
and the descriptions of it is pretty graphic.
Yeah,
So there is some issues with the game. I will admit that, but I still like the game. It suffers from the Betrayal House on the Hill problem where
I do believe Tom and Co were citing exactly that.
Yeah.
They're talking about the fact that it's the enjoyment of that game is very much dependent on which story you pull out.
Correct.
Because the one time we played it, I was like, "Oh, that was it.
Yeah.
This game's over in 5 minutes."
Yeah.
So it was like, "Oh, and then this happens. Okay, well, we're done."
Yeah.
There wasn't much game.
Yeah, exactly. So, but that's why it comes in at number 5, and that is Coma Ward.
My number 4 is a strange one, and it's because this is the only time where I get legitimate, I wouldn't say fear, but anxiety when I flip over a card. That's Xenoshift.
Oh God, yeah.
Because Xenoshift is it's a cooperative game. It's hard. We've talked about this game at length. It's one of the best cooperative games. One of the best cooperative deck builders. One of the best deck builders. Period. Purely because it has a lot of cooperation. You have to. You basically, it's mandatory. If you want to win, you have to play cards on other people's tableaus in order for them to survive. But nothing is more terrifying in that game, especially in the late ones, when you flip over a boss card.
Oh God.
Because they're shuffled randomly. One player is going to hit this thing.
Yeah.
And then everybody has to then cooperate to offload to try to kill this thing. Otherwise, it's going to get through.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, they are horrific looking.
Yep. Their descriptions are horrific looking.
Bloodborne almost made this list because it's not a bad game, but the artwork is incredibly terrifying. This one this one's a better game with equally good artwork, but when you flip over a boss and you're not ready for that boss,
yeah, you're hot.
Wow,
your stomach drops.
Yeah, exactly, because you know it's in there. You know you're gonna fight it, and you just hope to God you're ready for it when it shows up. And sometimes you're like, that's horrible looking.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's my number 4 pick, Xenoshift. You like that pull, didn't you?
I did. My number 4 pick is one that doesn't get talked about much anymore. People criticize the artwork of this game because it is live action pictures in the game. But it is still, in my opinion, a really great game. And the reason why I find it really good is because it pulls on the urban legends and the old legends that were horrors.
Yeah, I'm indifferent about the game. I thought it was okay.
And that is A Touch of Evil.
Yeah.
Like it pulls on vampires, the Wendigos, ghost ships, Lady in White, like all Krampus, like it has all of it. And for me, that one it's got a very unique play style to it. You add in all the expansions, and it does the whole Arkham Horror thing where the thing takes up the entire table. And really, honestly, it's set in a pretty... The setting is perfect for that kind of, time where it's like you're talking probably, 1800s, probably? It's, muzzle, flintlock and muzzle loading. It's, It is it's a good horror game. The theme fits right, and you don't feel like, in this game, you don't feel like you're some big superhero. You feel like you're in a horror movie and you're barely gonna get out alive. So for me, that's my number 4, A Touch of Evil.
My number 3 is the game that is just going to end up on this list, and that's Mansions of Madness 2nd Edition.
Because that's also the same position that mine is.
Number 3?
It is.
Number 3. All right, we'll talk about... So, Mansions of Madness 2nd Edition. It's the game that uses the app integration the best, having played these other variations.
And builds the suspense.
There's a couple things that make it work. Now, oddly enough, it works with this. It doesn't necessarily work as well with Journeys.
Yeah.
One, there's this looming dread that things are getting worse. You don't know when, you don't know how, but things are going to start going downhill at some point.
And when they start going downhill, you're just like, oh, damn, we need to speed up what we're doing because stuff is starting to go bad.
But you don't know where it's going to happen, how it's going to happen. You don't know how
fast it's going to happen.
Yeah. And so you're racing, and suddenly you realize you had a lot of time, or you realize, we still didn't have a lot of time.
Yeah.
You generally have more time than you think. The game gives you a bit more time. I think the game gives you more time than Journeys does, which is very weird.
Yeah.
I like the monsters. Oddly enough, the missions I've done, monsters very rarely pop up. But when they do, you're like, oh,
Oh yeah,
this thing. It's not one of those things like, oh, this pushover. Nothing I've ever. When we grabbed one of the smallest models, and it took us like 6 rounds, one character psyched out.
Yep.
And literally, they were losing. Like every round, they were losing until I ran in. One guy's near dead. I ran in with the single solitary gun in the group, and I killed it.
Yep.
But like nothing's a pushover. There's terror. There's things you want to run. You want to escape from the rooms. It's number 3, 2, and 1 are really close. So it's one of those things where it's a fantastic experience. It's expensive, but it really knows how to lay down the atmosphere and the tension. One of the best games you can play on Halloween, and that's Mansions of Madness.
Second edition.
Second edition.
I will agree.
All right. And that's your number 3, which means it's back to me with number 2.
It is.
Unless you had something else you wanted to say, because I know you talked about Mansions of Madness on our previous list.
No, you pretty much nailed it all. It pretty much for me is all encompassing. It hits all the key points. The only thing I still have with the problem with this game, and it's the only criticism I have for all these types of game, is it comes in at 4-player count as the max. And for me,
Journey goes up to 5.
Oh, there you go. So for me, that is a problem because I never have.
Hallelujah.
I'm halfway there with me and the wife, so 2 more people show up and boom, that's it.
Yeah.
Nobody else. And I've had that time where it's like you're setting out the game. It's like, all right, we're gonna play, and then dogs go off. Someone walks down the stairs. You're just like,
my number 2 pick is Apocrypha. Apocrypha is going to talk about your touch of evil. Apocrypha does play off of a lot of the mythology. I've made jokes that it is. I think it's. So you're going to correct me on this. It is one of the only games that taps into the modern paranormal horror format and covers them all. Like there are ones like, oh yeah, we have a zombie story here, we have a vampire story here, but this is the only one that I've seen that covers all of them, from werewolves to wendigos to vampires to angels and demons. In the same
set
way,
in modern times.
in the modern time, because you have it's X-Files, it's Supernatural, it's Constantine, it's all of those TV shows.
You're right. I don't think I can't think of anything
rolled into one. It is a better version than this game, and we've disagreed on this at length, but I think this is, despite the fact there's so
Except
much.
for that's the role-playing game.
I know, but the point is, like, this is near, I can grab it, it's nearby. So the Pathfinder card game. Really? Huh. The Pathfinder card game, I feel, is vastly inferior because of how it employs its dice. I find there's more cooperation in Apocrypha. I find that there's more dice mitigation in Apocrypha, and I like the uniqueness of its setting, even though it's been ripped off. It's a big rip-off of 30 different movies and TV shows. I still would prefer that over Vanilla Finder. So, and the monsters are creepy. There's a lot of storyline to it. So even the characters you play are a little creepy. You have nightmares. You have images of your future impending death. It's one of the few games I play, and after I play it, I'm like, a week passes, I'm like, I want to play it again. I would rather play Apocrypha again than play something like Gloomhaven, which is very weird. So that's my number 2 pick, Apocrypha. Way too expensive a game, though.
Yeah, and hard to get. So hard to get.
Oh yeah, like only one place in our town carried it, and it carried it for like $65, considering that box is 1/5 occupied. That's way too expensive. That game should be free.
Even online, trying to track down the rest of it, the volume 2 and 3.
Although finally those expansions popped up, so if I can't, for example, I could buy the Flesh and the other expansions.
Yeah, I got them.
And I might, depending how far we burn through the beginning box. I may end up doing it just because I enjoy it way more than Pathfinder.
My second one is a game that, as you're playing it, you feel the mounting tension of the bad guy getting there. You feel you're running out of time. Things are going from bad to worse to, oh, we can handle this, to, oh, crap, no, we can't. The world is ending. And that is Eldritch Horror.
Yeah, no, I know. Like I said, I made a promise I was only going to put one.
Yep.
Cthulhu game on this list. So put Mansions of Madness because it's the best game of that series. Otherwise, I'm like, and now we're going to put Eldritch Horror, and then we're going to put Arkham Horror, the card game.
Not even.
I almost got that one, and I'm looking forward to getting that game because the
played it yet.
Lord of the
I have
Rings,
it.
the Lord of the Rings 2-player game is really solid, and everyone says the Arkham Horror card game is better. So,
Yeah, that's my number 2,
well,
Eldritch
you
Horror.
didn't say anything about it,
No,
and I know you don't like Arkham Horror 3rd Edition
I like Arkham Horror 3rd Edition. I just don't like it as much as Arkham Horror 2nd Edition.
because of the player count.
Yeah. And also, it just feels like there's stuff missing from it.
Rapping Rock, winning again. All right, my number 1 pick, I can see it from there, is a game which is only the few games where I intentionally try to make it scarier than it is. It's actually
Oh.
what's that?
I know which one it is.
What is it?
Subterra.
It is Subterra. Subterra is it's a horror game. Absolutely. It's the Descent, not Descent the board game, Descent the movie. You've trapped in an underground cave network. You can't climb yourself out of the hole you got yourself into. You have to explore the cave network and find your own way out. There are monsters called lurkers that will hunt you down. You have to take risks. You can't just shine a flashlight down an area and then put down a tile. If you want to survive, you've got to go blind into an area and walk into an area that may not be what you want. And I can tell you, grab that tile and go, oh, it's good, it's gas. Or, oh my God, it's a cliff. Or suddenly, oh, I slide down this ramp and I can't climb up. I'm separated from the group. We all either have to follow him or find our own way out around and hopefully rejoin. Or you walk into it at the dead end where a lurker could spawn and you have to get the heck out of there. And after everyone's turn, you draw an event and hope to God it's not an event that's going to affect you. Suddenly there's a cave in, you get buried, someone has to come in and dig you out. I love the fact that you dim the lights you can buy, and we bought the actual black light flashlight, which you shine away from the bedroom. You shine, and all the little dots illuminate, so you can see the map better when you're shining, and that becomes our first player marker. So the first player gets to play around with all that, and then we move the first player marker to the next person. There's a soundtrack. There's a Nemesis soundtrack that got released unofficially, but Subterra has an official gloomy 45-minute ambient audio track. Like you can play. It's been free to download ever since it got released. And it is the only, like I said, Z Garcia adores this game. When it's probably his top 10 games of all time, topped out his horror list as well, because it is one of the it's a game with very non-asymmetric characters. There's very little difference between them. The miniatures kind of all look the same. And yet, with these tiles of just navigating, they've created an incredibly narrative experience where suddenly, oh my God, there's a monster between us. And we found a way to connect 2 tunnels together so this guy can connect up with this group. And we created a loop. But there's a monster there. How did we get over here? Now, oh, hi, one of our characters is a diver. He dives into one of the ponds, pops out in the other pond. Booga booga booga, aggroes the lurker towards him, and then he dives back into the water as the other guy sneaks up behind him. There's this hallway here we have to get here. Luckily, we brought the engineer who plants some explosives and blows a hole and creates a passageway to another room. It's got so many neat narrative moments that organically show up as you play the game. And as the recording of this, they are creeping up to the launch of their sequel, Subterra 2. I didn't think I was going to back it. I think I'm going to now because everything I've seen looks really neat that they're building upon. They just posted the manual, like as I left to come here, they posted the manual. It definitely looks different. It's not just a color shift. It looks like they've actually did play a couple ideas with the mechanics. Hopefully they learned from some of the mistakes and played with the ideas so you can play around. But yeah, it's creepy as all hell, and I think it's a fantastic game, and that is Subterra. It's a game that I backed. Literally, I looked at Kickstarter and went, scroll through. Oh, I'm back in this. Didn't even got halfway through the campaign, through the pledge, and I just like, this has got my money. Pure.
So, my number 1 is, as far as I'm concerned, the godfather of horror board games.
Is it The Godfather?
No. That's Arkham Horror Second Edition.
Oh, okay.
You know, the all-encompassing,
They have
sprawling, huge-
Eldritch and Arkham and
Yep.
Mansions of Madness 1, 2, and 3. Really?
Yeah. Arkham Horror is
Surprised you didn't put
an
Elder Sign.
amazing game with great replay. I don't find Elder Sign that encompassing.
I don't like Elder Sign. Don't
The
like
replayability on it is through the roof. And it's really interesting how the different ancient ones will affect the game, where it's like, oh, I'm playing, with Hastur. It's like, okay, cultists are really psychotic now. Okay, that's an issue. Or you're playing as Azathoth, and all of a sudden you lose, and it's like, oh, we're going to go to the boss fight. It's like, no, because it's Azathoth, and he eats the world, and you die. Game over. I have played many games of this game. The only thing I hate about this game is trying to explain this game. For whatever reason, people find it hard to understand, and I don't know why.
Well, because you played the game, so you understood it. Like for me trying to explain Apocrypha, I can, but it was one of those situations where people were like, that's way too much.
Yeah.
It's almost too much to absorb sometimes. But then you play and you're like, oh, this is easy. You go, yeah, told you.
Yeah.
But when you try to teach someone, especially when
but
you're...
let's be fair. Honestly, that's part of... I'm sorry.
A
but
friend of
that is
mine was...
Mike's problem when writing manuals. He does not write a good manual. I'm sorry.
Mike,
Selinker.
we're talking about Apocrypha again?
Yep.
Oh, yeah, no, Apocrypha is horrible. It's got one of the worst manuals out there.
Oh, my God.
It's absolutely awful. But even going further, though, 2 days ago, when we played Steampunk Rally, someone's like, hey, man, can I borrow Apocrypha? I'm like, no. And they're like, really? It's like, no, I have no problem lending you a game. But you will not learn Apocrypha by grabbing that book and reading the manual. I have to teach it to you because you will never play it.
Yeah.
You will read the manual, you will be confused. You will look online, you will find their instructional manual, you will hate it and realize there's no way for you to learn how to play this game through their video. And then what you'll do, what I ended up doing, is watching that video, reading the manual, watching Rado's playthrough twice, and then interpreting it. And yet when I played that a second time, I then made a video. So I think, honestly, my review on the Dice Tower may be the best explanation of the game out there, because their rules don't do it. There's no other good online, and I do it in about 15, 20 minutes. So much so that when I had people try to learn the game, I didn't even bother try to teach them. I just played my video and said, okay, there you go. That's it, because it is such a dense game.
Yeah.
But yeah, that all being said, sure. Like I said, I wasn't going to put Fantasy Flight 1, 2, and 3. I wasn't going to do it. And Mansions of Madness was the best one, so I threw it on there. And I don't object to Apocrypha or Subterra. I think they deserve their spots.
Fair enough.
So number 5 is Faceless. Number 4, Xenoshift. You should have put that one on the list. Number 3, Mansions of Madness. Number 2, Apocrypha. Number 1, Subterra.
My number 5, Coma Ward. Number 4, Touch of Evil. Number 3, Mansions of Madness, Second Edition. Number 2, Eldritch Horror. Number 1, Arkham Horror, Second Edition.
All right.
Not third.
I'll probably like third, too. So I have been Chris.
I've been Dave.
And remember, the rules are just as...
So is the script, apparently. The
I
rules
can't
are just
say that's wrong. The rules are just a suggestion. It's you wrote the stupid code. I'm trying to... You gotta say, the rules are just a suggestion. It's just I want sashimi with my sushi today.
The rules are just a suggestion. Play the game how you want to play it.
And say the ending line the way you want to say it.